She watched him for less than 30 seconds before she knew, not consciously, not as a decision she made. It was quieter than that, more like something settling in her nervous system before her reasoning had caught up. He was put together. He said the right things when the moment came. He was charming in the way men practice being charming. And she noticed all of that. She also noticed something else, something he had no idea was visible. The way he stood while he was waiting and thought no one was watching. The way something shifted in his expression when a small thing did not go his way. The way he looked at the person serving him, or more accurately, did not look at them at all. He was doing everything he had learned to do, and she was reading everything he had not thought to manage. This is the thing most men never find out. A mature woman is not running the same evaluation they expect. She is not looking at the surface of a man and asking whether it is impressive enough. She stopped doing that a long time ago after learning, more than once at real cost, that the surface and what is underneath it are not always the same country. What she looks for now is not performed. It cannot be prepared for in the conventional sense. It is transmitted, not presented. It leaks out of a man in the moments he does not think are being observed. And she observes them, not because she is cold or calculating, because she has become genuinely wise about what to look for. The last thing on this list is the one she will never tell you she noticed. But it is the thing she remembers longest. It is the thing that determines, sometimes within 60 seconds, whether a man has any real chance with her at all. We will get there. But first, you need to understand how differently she is looking. There is an assumption that sits underneath most of what men have been told about attraction, and it goes something like this. Mature women are essentially the same as younger women, but with higher standards, as though the upgrade is simply a steeper version of the same game. More impressive credentials, better appearance, sharper conversation, and if a man can just clear a higher bar, he is in. That assumption is wrong, and it is wrong in a way that costs men real opportunities with real women they genuinely care about. A mature woman, emotionally experienced, self-aware, no longer easily dazzled, is not looking at a higher version of the same layer. She is looking at an entirely different layer. She has already been through the version of attraction built on surface signals. She has been charmed by men who spoke with confidence and turned out to be hollow beneath it. She has been drawn in by presence and chemistry and the electricity of early intensity, and she has watched all of that dissolve under the weight of ordinary life when the man underneath could not hold. She has done that chapter. She knows how it ends. So she is not asking herself whether you are impressive. She is asking herself whether you are real, whether the ease you project is genuine or rehearsed, whether the steadiness you carry is actually yours or borrowed from favorable circumstances, whether what she is receiving from you is the truth of who you are or a version of yourself you have constructed for the occasion. This distinction is everything, because performance, however skilled, has a ceiling. It costs energy to maintain, and it eventually shows its seams. Authenticity, on the other hand, compounds. It deepens over time. It leaves a residue in her memory that other men's performances cannot touch. So here is what matters as you go through this. The problem has never been that you are not enough. The problem is that you may have been trained to perform for the wrong audience. What a mature woman notices is not what you have prepared. It is what you reveal without knowing you are revealing anything. And what is coming next, if you listen to it carefully, will help you understand not just what she sees, but what is already true about you that you may not yet know how to inhabit. The first thing she registers has nothing to do with what you say to her. It has everything to do with what you do when you are not saying anything to anyone in particular. A mature woman forms her earliest and most durable impressions of a man not in the moments of introduction, not in the first conversation, but in the unguarded moments that happen before and between and around those things. The way he moves through a space when he is not performing for it. The way he waits. The way he handles the small frustrations that no one else would blame him for expressing. The delayed order, the minor inconvenience, the moment where the environment does not cooperate with his plan. These are the moments that tell her who he actually is, and she reads them fluently. He probably thinks the first impression happens when they speak. It does not. By the time they speak, she has already registered something. Whether his posture reflects a man who is at ease in his own body, or a man who is managing how his body appears. Whether his patience is genuine or performative. whether he acknowledges the person bringing him a drink with the same quality of human presence he offers someone he is trying to impress. These things are invisible to a man who is focused on making an impression. They are entirely visible to a woman who learned, through experience, that these unscripted moments are the truest data she has access to. There is a particular moment she looks for, not deliberately, but instinctively. She watches him interact with someone who has no social leverage in the situation: a waiter, a parking attendant, someone who brushed against him in a narrow doorway and apologized. She is not scoring him. She is not administering a test. She is simply paying the kind of attention she has learned to pay, because she has discovered over time that how a man treats people who cannot do anything for him reveals the character that will eventually be turned toward her. If he is warm and easeful with them, she notes it. If he looks through them, or becomes visibly irritated, or performs warmth while transmitting impatience, she notes that too. He will not know any of this happened. He will think the impression is still being formed, and she will already know something real about him. Something she could not have known from anything he prepared. This is quietly humbling, but it is also clarifying, because it means the path forward is not about performing better, it is about inhabiting more genuinely. And the next thing she notices deepens that truth considerably. The second thing she registers is something most men believe they are already doing. And most men, if they are honest with themselves, are not quite doing it the way they think. She knows within the first real conversation whether you are listening or whether you are waiting. The distinction sounds subtle. It is not subtle to her. It is one of the most decisive readings she takes, and she takes it quickly because she has had enough conversations with men to know what both versions feel like in her body. Waiting to talk has a particular texture. There is a quality of surface attention in it: nodding, eye contact, the performance of engagement. But beneath it, something is already composing itself, already preparing the next offering, already redirecting the current of the conversation back toward a more comfortable shore. A man doing this is not absent. He is simply not fully there. He is present enough to maintain the appearance of listening, but not present enough to actually receive what she is saying. True listening feels different. It has a quality of reception to it that she registers not just mentally, but physically. The conversation moves differently. There is space in it. He asks questions that could not have come from anywhere but genuine hearing. Questions that pick up a thread she mentioned briefly and returns to with real curiosity. He does not redirect toward himself when she touches something personal. He holds what she said for a moment before responding, and that moment, that brief beat of actual consideration, communicates something she has not encountered as often as she deserves to. When a man truly listens, she does not just feel heard. She feels that she exists in the conversation as a person, not as an audience for his performance or a mirror for his self-image. That is a rare experience, and rare experiences are memorable. She will mention something small, not a confession, not a dramatic revelation, just a detail of her life that she offers in the natural current of conversation. A man who is waiting to talk will let it pass without friction. A man who is truly listening will return to it later without ceremony in a way that makes clear he has been carrying it. That return is what stays with her, because it told her she was heard not just in the moment, but beyond it. And a man who hears her beyond the moment is a man she begins to trust with more. But listening, as powerful as it is only part of what she is sensing, because beneath the listening, beneath the attention, there is something she is reading even more carefully, something that tells her not just about this conversation, but about what it would feel like to share real closeness with him over time. She is watching what he does with discomfort. This is the piece most men are completely unaware of. They understand, in an abstract sense, that emotional intelligence matters, but they do not understand precisely how a mature woman reads it and how much of her long-term assessment of a man is formed in moments where the conversation briefly touches something real, something slightly vulnerable, something that could be difficult if it were acknowledged rather than deflected. She is not looking for a man who has no discomfort. She is not looking for someone immune to difficulty or feeling. What she is looking for, what she registers with extraordinary precision, is whether a man stays present when emotional weight enters the room or whether he finds a way to leave without physically leaving. The deflection can be very subtle, a joke that lightens too quickly, a pivot to something practical that avoids the feeling underneath. a slight change in posture and energy that communicates without words that this territory is not somewhere he wants to remain. She reads all of it because she has learned what it costs to be emotionally close to someone who cannot stay in the room when the room gets honest. She has carried conversations alone that should have been shared. She has softened and shrunk and managed the emotional climate of relationships so that the man in them did not have to feel too much. She is not doing that again. So when something real surfaces and when she shares something that has weight, when the conversation briefly touches vulnerability, when silence arrives that carries meaning, she watches. Does he stay? Does he breathe into it? Does his presence remain steady even though the territory has shifted? Or does some version of flight happen, subtle, socially acceptable, but completely legible to her? The man who stays is the man who remains in her mind, not because staying is a feat of performance, but because it is genuinely rare. Most men, without realizing it, are managing their own discomfort in these moments in ways that leave her quietly alone in the feeling, and she has become skilled enough and honest enough with herself to know the difference between a man who is with her and a man who is merely near her. What you have heard so far is about what she observes in you. But the next part of this is different, and it may be the most important shift in perspective this entire video offers, because a mature woman has learned to trust something beyond observation. She has learned to trust what she feels in herself when she is around you, and that feeling is not random, it is information. Stay with what comes next. There is something a mature woman has learned through years of experience that younger women are often still discovering. She has learned that her own internal state in a man's presence is one of the most reliable signals available to her. Not just what she observes in him, but what happens to her when she is near him. Whether she contracts or expands, whether she monitors herself or relaxes into herself, whether she feels the subtle pressure to be a curated version of herself, or whether she can simply be the full, unpolished, sometimes contradictory person she actually is. This is what she registers in the fourth layer of her impression of you. And it is the one most directly within your influence, because it is not about a quality she watches you perform. It is about an experience she has in your company. What a mature woman remembers, long after the conversation is over, long after the details have faded, is the feeling of being entirely safe to be herself around you. Not safe in the sense of being protected from difficulty, safe in the psychological sense. The freedom to be direct without managing your reaction, to be imperfect without being corrected for it, to be intelligent without softening herself for your comfort, to disagree without watching the temperature of the room change. That kind of safety is not common. And when she finds it, she notices. She says something direct, something slightly blunt, or authentically unfiltered, or just real in the way that real people are real when they are not performing. And she watches, not consciously, but in that part of her that is always reading, what happens in him. Does he flinch? Does he become visibly uncertain about how to respond? Does something subtle close down in him that signals she has stepped outside the acceptable range? Or does he simply receive it? Does he meet it with ease, maybe even something equally unguarded, without making it a moment that requires repair? His ease with her realness is more memorable to her than almost anything complimentary he could have said, because compliments can be manufactured. Ease cannot. And a man who does not need her to be smaller, tidier, or more manageable than she actually is, who receives the full version of her without retreating from it. That man registers as something close to relief. And relief, for a woman who has spent years carefully managing how much of herself she shows in the presence of men who could not hold it, is one of the most quietly powerful experiences she can have. This is the shift the video has been building toward, away from what you do, toward who you are in her presence. And that shift points directly to the last thing on this list, the one she will never name out loud, but the one she returns to longest, the one that underlies everything else she has noticed, the one that determines, at the deepest level, whether you remain in her. There is a quality that lives beneath all of the observable things, beneath the behavior, beneath the listening, beneath the steadiness, beneath the ease. It is not a quality you can perform, because the moment it becomes performance, it vanishes. She can feel the difference. She always can. The quality is this: he knows who he is. Not perfectly, not without question, but there is something settled in him, something that does not require external confirmation to stay in place. His identity is not a project dependent on the approval of the room. This is what she senses beneath everything else. And it is the thing she remembers longest. It is not the same as confidence in the conventional sense, though it can look like confidence from the outside. Confidence can be performed. It can be constructed from the right posture, the right vocal tone, the right social fluency. What she is reading is deeper than that, and she reads it in moments that strip performance away, moments where something small challenges him. Someone disagrees, mildly and socially, the way people do in conversation. Or something does not go as he planned, and the environment briefly reveals that it does not care about his preferences. Or someone says something that could be taken as a slight, intended or not. In that moment, she watches what happens inside him. Not on his face exactly, but in the quality of his response. Does something tighten? Does he move quickly to defend or explain or reassert? Does his energy shift in the way energy shifts when someone's sense of themselves requires protection? Or does he simply remain? Does his answer, if he gives one, come from somewhere that is not rattled? Not because he is indifferent to the moment, but because who he is does not depend on how the moment resolves. She has been around men who need the room to confirm them, men whose ease is contingent on approval, whose steadiness depends on things going well, whose identity is, at its foundation, a negotiation with the environment. She knows what that feels like to be around. It creates a subtle, constant low-level pressure. The pressure of needing to be careful. Careful not to destabilize him, careful not to say the wrong thing, careful to maintain the conditions under which he functions well. That pressure is exhausting, and she is no longer willing to carry it. The man who knows who he is creates the opposite experience. He does not need her to confirm him. He does not need the conversation to validate him, or the evening to go perfectly, or her approval to stay intact. And that particular freedom from needing her to hold him together, is the rarest and most compelling thing she can encounter. Because a man who does not need her confirmation is a man she can actually be present with, rather than a man she is quietly managing. This is the thing she notices first and remembers longest. Not the performance, not the charm, not the appearance or the accomplishment. The quiet, undefended settledness of a man who is already himself and does not require the situation to ratify it. Here is where this leaves you. Not with a list of things to fix, not with a performance to improve, not with new behaviors to layer over old ones. Something more fundamental than that. She notices what is real. She has spent enough of her life learning to read beneath the surface that the surface, however polished, is no longer where she looks. What she is looking for already exists in you, or is already within reach, not through better technique, but through greater honesty. Honesty about who you actually are when the room is not grading you. Honesty about what you are genuinely curious about in her, rather than what you are performing curiosity about. Honesty about your own discomfort, your own uncertainty, your own still becoming. Because a man who is honest about his own incompleteness is far more compelling to a mature woman than a man who is pretending to be finished. You are not the man who walks in trying to figure out what she wants so you can supply it. You are the man who now understands that what she is actually registering is the truth of you, and that the most powerful thing you can offer her is not a better version of the performance. It is a more genuine version of the person. There is more here worth understanding. About how real intimacy is built with a woman who has already done the version of love that burned bright and collapsed. About what she needs to feel before she moves toward someone and how that movement happens. About the particular depth of connection available with a woman who has stopped settling, and what it takes to be the kind of man she chooses to stay. If you want to go deeper into this, the understanding you have already begun is worth continuing. You are exactly the kind of man for whom that continuation makes sense.